and welcome to Talking AI, a podcast about all things artificial intelligence, brought to you by Scan AI. Each episode will be taking a look at a different relevant topic or industry affected by artificial intelligence. I'm one of your hosts, Nikki Dean.
I'm Daniel Parkinson.
And for our first episode, we're going with the biggie, aren't we, Dan? We're going to go with, is AI taking over the world?
Yeah, quite a scary topic.
It is, and it's a big one. But before we answer that question, I want to go right back to basics and talk about what is artificial intelligence in a nutshell.
Yeah, I mean, it's a marketing term. In short, it's an umbrella term. AI has been around since the 50s, in some way, shape, or form. AI encompasses a couple of different things. So traditionally today, when we think of AI, we think of it in its form of deep learning, but that's a subset of machine learning, which is a subset of AI. So AI technically is an umbrella term for everything machine learning and deep learning, different versions of AI.
Okay, so artificial intelligence, we talk about the artificial thing. What it can be, I think people conjure up that perhaps don't know about it or aren't thinking about it in terms of tangible ways that are actually already using it, which I know we're going to talk about today. It can sound quite scary, can't it? Sort of robots and quite sci-fi and futuristic. But it's not, is it? What does the broader term, what does it cover off when we say artificial intelligence? What are we actually referring to?
A couple of different things. So when I very first joined Scan and joined the AI team, I used to think AI was the Terminators or the things that's going to take over the world, the robots. That is something completely different. It's an amalgamation of all different traditional AI, machine learning, deep learning techniques. So it's putting things like computer vision, natural language processing together, and then having it think for itself, and then adding all three of those together. That's traditionally called AGI, so artificial general intelligence.
Okay.
So when you see the robots that can talk, that's got cameras in there, it's got all sorts of other things that's going on underneath the scene. And that is the Terminator that's going to eventually take over the world, at least in my head.
Yeah.
But AI,
not to scare anybody. That's not going to happen.
No, it's not. It's not. We're quite a way off that yet. But yeah, AI, it is everywhere, as we've talked about before. We're using it every day, and perhaps we don't even know it. It's in our mobile phones, it's in our TVs, it's in a lot of the things that we use day to day, baked into that technology under the scene that you perhaps don't necessarily know about.
Okay, so let's make it tangible to people. How is your everyday person in the street? Let's give them an example of AI. You've said it's in your phone, something that everybody does every day, just to give them an idea. What is artificial intelligence that you're using right now in your hand?
So predictive text, as a very, very basic example. So whenever you're typing a text message, you may or may not notice that that's there, but that's a model that's been trained to understand or predict what you're going to type next. So when you're typing something, it'll pop up with little suggestions of words that you could maybe save yourself a couple of little clicks. If rather than typing all the letters, you just tap on that word. That's now evolving. I think if you type emails in certain programs, it will sort of forward plan a lot of the sentence, and you can just press a button and it'll give you the whole sentence rather than you typing it all out, because it knows and it's learned that is the most likely occurrence. That is effectively what a lot of AI is. It's basic math, and it's a...
You get that on Facebook now, don't you? If you see a friend's post and it's obviously it's recognised certain words, that if you go to click with a comment, it's already written one for you. And you can click it saying, congratulations, I'm really happy for you. I'm thinking, I never even wrote that. It's just generated it from understanding what the post is. And I guess also getting to know the language that you use as well. So we are all using it every day.
I sort of laugh when I see those posts, because you see a lot of the same people who put the same picture on, and it's got the emoticon or whatever it is that links to it. And you can sort of see that people have just tapped a button rather than actually engaged.
So that's a really good example of, as the end user, how we are seeing and using artificial intelligence. But what's actually going on behind the scenes then to get to that point?
Many years and man hours of research, development, training. So that we traditionally split it up at Scan into 3 different workloads: development, training, inference. That bit that you're seeing is the end goal. It's the inference stage. But that training could take anything from 2-5 years, depending on the speed and volume of data that you've got. And a lot of this does centre around the data having a very well curated, don't want to go too technical, but a data set. And that's just been trained to sort of recognise many different patterns and ways of people typing and sending messages to understand that this is probably, you've typed what is, and it's read the rest of, or understood the rest of the sentiment and the email or message that you've typed, and it's then going to predict the most likely outcome of what you want to say next. From the birthday example that you gave, they know that it's a person's birthday. They know that you visited that person's profile. It's very likely, there's very high probability that you're there to say happy birthday. So it's a very good chance, a high probability that that's what you want to do. The AI model has then basically predicted that that's what you've come for, and then just gives you a selected series of outcomes or things for you to do, actions for you to sort of take off the back of that. Similar with LinkedIn, it knows that someone's been in a role for a certain period of time. It knows that you visited that person's profile, so it's then taken all those different metrics to then go, right, you want to congratulate that person.
Pretty clever, isn't it? Is it going to make us lazy, though? I mean, those are some nice shortcuts that I think when we've got these busy days, it's quite nice to do, but it takes the kind of the personal angle out of it. Is it going to make us lazy in some respects of our life, then, do you think, artificial intelligence, or the opposite?
That's a very... I think it's probably going to be... Yeah, it's the short answer. I think it will. I think it will, and that's just nature. Whatever's the easiest outcome, the simplest form of doing something, we will. I think Amazon have simplified the journey to buy something. You can buy something in 4 clicks now. So that they've simplified that journey, and AI will do that. So as an assistive technology, yeah, it will simplify a lot of things, but you could look at it as lazy, you could look at it as being assisted.
I was going to say, let's look at it as being efficient.
Yeah.
Better use of our time, maybe.
Exactly.
Okay, so we can get our heads around maybe how the huge corporations can easily adopt this. They've got loads of money to throw at it. They've perhaps got in-house experts. But what about the other end of the scale, maybe micro businesses, smaller businesses that don't have loads of money to throw at it? Is it accessible from a cost perspective in reality?
Yeah, definitely. I mean, there's a lot of time and effort. As I said, AI's been a thing for a long time. And there are a lot of free-to-access resources. There are a lot of pre-trained models that people have already done all the hard work and simplified it and made it, as you say, very accessible and easy for people to go and take something like that. Yes, it might be basic. It might not be for a very specific requirement, but it's something that people can go and implement right now and with great ease. That's sort of the beauty of where Scan come in, and we can sort of help. Our day-to-day engagements are very much, we're asking people, what are you trying to do? What's the business goal? What's the outcome that you need to achieve? And then we'll show you all these different resources that you've got available to you. It could be some large-scale training that you may need. It could be a cloud instance from from Scan's cloud. It could be just something that's free and readily accessible now. So there's a plethora of different options. It is, from my perspective, understanding the whole playing field, very accessible to everyone.
Okay. Give us some examples then of how, if you are a micro business, you don't have loads of budget, how you might start to adopt artificial intelligence, whether that is deep learning, machine learning, whatever. We're using the broader sense of artificial intelligence. Would that be something like automation, starting to automate certain, dare I say, monotonous tasks? Can you give me an example of that and how you might apply that to a micro business, or maybe even like a sole trader, one-man band, haven't got a lot of money, you just want to be able to be more efficient in some aspects of your business?
Yeah, there's, as I say, so I think depends how much time and energy and investment that you want to make in that, of where you start off. For someone very basic who just wants to, say, for example, monitor traffic of people coming into a shop, there's lots of pre-trained models that are out there that scan people, and you can set up something that does a simple counter. So you can set up a very basic camera with something, a laptop, a computer, that then analyzes and tracks that traffic, people coming in. That you could then use that as, from a business owner's perspective, as analysis of what footfall am I getting in my shop, and then you could then advance that a little bit further, if then you could track people in your store, heat map it wherever they go, and place specific marketing in certain areas of the business. That's definitely something that Scan help people with. There's all sorts of stuff that's from physical bricks and mortar stores. From an online perspective, there's all sorts of recommendation engines, things that it's a big topic, but looking at your viewing patterns, your viewing habits, and the things that you actually click on and look at, then generates recommendations of other stuff of similar nature and type. That is a business that has built or deployed that model to go and do exactly that, to make a recommendation for you.
Which we're seeing a lot of actually across the board, aren't we? We were talking a bit earlier about things like Netflix. You get recommendations based on your viewing habits, or, I do a lot of online clothes shopping. I'm starting to see recommendations of shoes that will match the dress I've just bought, and it knows my size, and it knows that I'm a sucker for a promotion, so it sends me certain things. So you can actually start to understand from both sides of the coin, really, why that's beneficial for me, makes my life easy. I'm on there, oh, brilliant, there's a new outfit, never thought of that, boom, in my shopping cart, done. But from the retailer's perspective, and whether that's a small or large business, that's being able to maximize sales, to upsell, to recommend things, and to the data. Essentially, that's what I'm getting at. The data behind all of that. It's collecting data all the time, which is powerful. It's the future. If you've got that data, you can start to predict. You can make sure you've got the right stock in. You can make sure that you are, perhaps if you've overbought stuff, you flog it to somebody thinking, well, I know she likes to buy a handbag with that, so let's show that's her. But it's powerful, isn't it? It's really powerful in all industries, I would say.
Yeah, definitely. There's a lot of, you can sort of generalize a use case. So recommendation engines, as you said, they're used in Netflix, but they're used in retail. They're used pretty much industry, across all sorts of industries. From a logistics perspective, retail has a logistics angle where you're going to be shipping stuff out, so finding optimal times and patterns for shipping things. But then a manufacturing perspective, they have inbound and outbound deliveries and stock movements all over. So the logistics angle definitely has a transfer learning perspective. Transcends industries then. So it's more the actual use case or what you're trying to achieve.
Yeah, we spoke a bit there about how data's key, and I know when you mentioned about the scanning the shop so you can see who's in your shop and when, I would imagine there's some people horrified thinking, scanning me in a shop, nowhere. But our data is out there anyway, isn't it? What would you say to people who've perhaps, a little bit nervous, either that's the business owner thinking, it doesn't feel quite right that we've, asking for all this information and we're scanning and whatever else. And also from the person on the other side that's saying, I don't want everybody to have my data, it's not something I'm comfortable with. Is it an ethical kind of issue, would you say?
Yeah, I think that's a way bigger topic. I'm definitely not the person to define those ethics. It's going to be everywhere. As I said before, we are using it whether we know it or not. Every time you consent to a website, you're tracking cookies, things like that, a lot of the options are turned on. There's naturally going to be people who are security conscious about what data you're giving out, and that's why GDPR is a thing. You've got the right to be forgotten. But that data is also useful, as you said, to make life efficient for everybody. And it's almost a balance, a sacrifice of how much data about yourself you are prepared to give away in order to make your life easier.
You're right, though, isn't it? I think we're ticking those boxes all the time, aren't we? You can win a holiday. You only have to give me this information about you. It's all around us, isn't it? And it is a huge topic. I know we'll probably do an episode just on that one thing, the ethics behind data and artificial intelligence and security aspects. So we won't go too into it today. We spoke about accessibility for businesses of all sizes from a cost perspective, but what about the knowledge base? It is intimidating. There's a lot of buzzwords that if you're not in the industry, you'll be thinking, what on earth are they talking about? So in terms of, being realistic about time that people have got to invest in this, how can you learn quickly about artificial intelligence so you understand what the trends are, you understand how to select exactly the right model for your business? How do you go about finding out that information? And is it easy enough to do in reality for your average person on the street?
Yes and no, depends, I suppose. And again, that may be a bit of a cop-out answer, but it depends how tech-savvy you are and what access to what information you've got. Scan definitely make that easy and simplify that for everybody. So if, again, the day-to-day engagements for us very much centre around what do you want to achieve, how do you try and achieve it? And that could be with a CTO or a director of a business, or a doctor or an actual data scientist. And, we then make recommendations based on solutions that are available. And they are just that, the recommendations, but we'll also give, more than one way to approach it.
But we do, I know there's a lot of training involved, isn't there, both from NVIDIA and also that Scan can help with as well, which will take you through the basics essentially of artificial intelligence, deep learning, and sort of give you an idea of how you could start to adopt it within your business, whatever size that might be.
Yeah, so that's something we've put a lot more emphasis on over the last, let's say, 18 months to 2 years. Scan have always delivered DLI, so Deep Learning Institute courses, which are NVIDIA certified courses. Over the last 2 years, that's accelerated phenomenally. We're sort of trying to put that on at least every quarter, and that may be doubling again to every sort of 6 weeks. The one we actually delivered, it was a couple of weeks ago now, was aimed at exactly that type of persons. People, they want to adopt and implement some form of AI, but they don't quite know what's going on. It's a black box, and they just want that fundamental knowledge and understanding of what it is. How do I get started? So Scan deliver that course. We also then look at stuff that's a bit more advanced and a bit more, I don't want to use the term grown up, but that then takes it to the next level of how to parallelize, distribute, how to accelerate all of that knowledge. But then that's the formal side of training. Informally, we have a lot of experience as a team. We've been doing AI for many, many years, and we are here to help. It is the short version. I will spend all day talking to people about what they're trying to do, what they're trying to achieve, and just make those recommendations. The rest of the team are exactly the same. So we, if anybody does need help, they don't know where to get started. It is a big, scary space. We can hold your hand through that process.
I was going to use that same term, as in, let's be honest about if you've a small business owner and you know that it should be on your radar, but for a number of reasons, you just don't know where to start. Would it be as simple as, and you said it there, holding hands and talking you through the basics? Because it is, there's no doubt about it, artificial intelligence is a very intimidating space. If it's not something you're used to, you don't consider yourself tech savvy. But I think people are starting to understand now that you've got to at least be aware of it, or you're going to be completely left behind as a business. Is that a fair point, do you think?
Yeah, definitely. And I think it was in the Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy that all technology that was created before the age of you are 35 is an opportunity for you to make money. And anything that comes out after the age of 35 is going to bring about the end of the universe.
Right, okay.
But that's the common perception.
Yeah, okay.
And if you are young and, everyone is using technology. If you look at the youth of today and at the risk of sounding old, when I was a kid, I didn't have access to half of the resources.
Scary,
I had
isn't it?
Very thick encyclopedia to do my homework with.
Yeah, I know.
But now the kids have got Wikipedia, they've got Google, they've got access to all sorts of resources, and technology has advanced massively. And I think everyone should embrace it. Not everyone wants to. My father-in-law still refuses to use his debit card, still writes checks.
Checks? Seriously?
Yeah. But
old school.
Exactly. And that works for him.
So yeah, old school with the check there. I like that one. And whilst it's nice that there are people who still want to use those traditional ways of paying for things, for example, is it fair to say that at some point in the near future, they're going to get left behind? There's just not the options to pay by check in a lot of places already.
Yeah, I think that's embracing technology as a whole. I think everyone needs to. But also, I feel like businesses that embrace AI have almost that responsibility to still give people that option. That, yes, it will simplify an experience, but not make that the only option, if that makes sense. Still give and make available bricks and mortar stores people to talk to on the other end of a phone, as opposed to a chatbot that is an AI model that's designed to understand what you're doing. I mean, I used one on Amazon very recently, and it was a seamless experience. But that's because I sort of embrace AI and technology. I understand what's going on. I understand how to get the response out of that chatbot. But I do see, some of, like I say, my parents and my in-laws a little bit fearful of that. So I can see people getting left behind.
It's understandable, though, isn't it? I think you mentioned the older generation. It's incredibly intimidating for even younger people. But if you've always done things a certain way, there will be that sort of hesitancy to adopt, and they should have the right to do that. That's my worry, that for older people, that, you know, their traditional ways of doing things and that face-to-face contact is not just older people. There are certain things I want to talk to a human being. I do not want to be on an automated line where I've got to press several numbers and then they cut me off. It's frustrating. So what do we do about that then? Is that just going to become the norm, that in certain roles we won't see a human being?
Yeah, you've hit the nail on the head. It's a generational thing. You know, we've grown up in an area, in a time, in an era where you do, if you want to go and return something, you go to a store, you go to a returns desk and you speak to a person, explain it. Our kids and that generation are going to grow up in an era of speaking to chatbots online. It is a generational thing. And unfortunately, I think it is going to get phased in over the years. In 50 years' time, everything will be AI or technology or whatever the next big thing is.
How do we help? I mean, I know you haven't got all the answers here, put you on the spot, but how do we help maybe our parents or grandparents or older people that just, how do they do it? But they don't want to go online. You know, they might not even have the internet or all these things. How do we expect that certain subsets of our society to be able to take part in things if it's out of their realm of knowledge or capability, or just the mere fact they don't want to?
There's sort of two sides of that, and there's either the business, as I said, businesses should at least maintain that social responsibility to support people that potentially don't want to use this assistive technology. But also, you know, if you've got family that are potentially struggling and you've got the knowledge and understanding, sort of like what I do day to day, help them along the way and maybe hold a hand.
This is how you send a text,
Yeah.
Mum. So, I mean, we've looked at kind of one end of the spectrum there about, you know, maybe some of the hesitancies about adopting it, but it is making life a lot easier on the one hand. But I'm just thinking of an example as we were talking there about younger people and some of the things that are actually quite character building. I remember having to physically go into a shop and return a skirt, and it was all above board, but I'd be sweating. I'd be thinking, oh my God, I've got to talk to this person. They're going to ask me if I worn it. You know, they're going to look at the label, and that's just something that our kids would never have to think about. You just put it back in the envelope and you don't even have to speak to a person. You scan it. So how it's changed is dramatic, isn't it? It has made our lives easier, but do you think it's also taken away some of the things that are actually quite character building?
Yeah, and I think you, like you said, you mentioned it sort of at the top of the episode, that is it going to make us lazy? And it probably will make certain aspects of human interaction lazy. Like you said, that ability to speak to and convince somebody that, no, I haven't worn this skirt.
And I never had, but I was still always really nervous.
Neither had I. But I still got to ask
Well, that's for another episode, Dan, obviously. But I mean, it's just, I mean, I was probably, you know, being a bit cheeky there, because that's not something you can answer. And that's just what's happening with the world. And I shouldn't be so resentful that I actually had to do those things. So is there a flip side to that then for the younger generation who know nothing different?
Yeah.
You know, what is it doing for them that maybe, because we probably straddle both sides actually. Like you were saying, we were grown up without all of these things, but we've embraced them at an early enough age that it's ingrained in our everyday. We'll talk about maybe some examples of what we've done recently that's AI, but what's it actually doing for young people that is a positive, would you say? Because we've talked about some of the things about the character build, and I was pulling your leg a bit there, but it is a concern as a parent. I'm thinking, you'll never have to do some of the things that made me the person I am today, you know. But what are the positives for the younger generation who just embrace AI? They won't even ever question it. It's just ingrained in them. It's what they do.
I think it's going to make the world a smaller place for them in a good way. It's going to make things more accessible, and that's technology as a whole, I suppose. You know, people have got friends the other side of the world now, whereas, as you said, when we were growing up, it was the next street along. And
pen pals, that was your only way of making friends abroad. A pen
Write a
pal. I
letter.
loved my pen pal. I wonder what they're up to now. Anyway, we digress. I'll have to use AI to track them down.
I used to have one in France.
Did you?
Yeah, we got given one in
We got given one as well. I bet they don't do that now,
no,
do
they don't. They send emails.
Yeah, bring back pen pals.
Just do a chat, or like a video chat or something like that. But yeah, I think a lot of that's technology making the world smaller. I think from an AI perspective, it will make the world far more efficient. As I said, that, you know, from a logistics perspective, just having that optimizations and using it as an assistive technology will definitely help the future generations do things that used to take a week, 10 days, now in a day, potentially.
opportunities. I think there's far more opportunities, isn't there, for all young people, hopefully. I hope I'm right in saying that maybe some things that you wouldn't have been able to for a number of reasons, maybe where you were born, the family that you live in, they're all kind of accessible. You can get involved in them online now a bit more, maybe. I think I know the answer that you're going to give me to this, but if we go back to the original question that we posed at the top about, is AI taking over the world? Is it, Dan?
I think, yeah. In the short version, it is slowly phasing its way into taking over everything. Whether that is the ultimate goal and whether that ends with AI, whether it evolves again, remains to be seen. But I think it is going to become more ingrained in everyday life.
In a positive way, though.
Yeah.
Because I think when you first hear that question, it does sound quite scary. You've got this kind of vision maybe of a robot coming after your job and thinking, how on earth am I going to make ends meet for my family? But I think hopefully we've given some examples, and we'll give some more in a minute, about how it's maybe taking over some jobs.
Yeah.
There's no argument about that. No, we're going to look at particular workplaces, but it's perhaps the jobs that human beings don't naturally want to do.
Yeah. And again, as I say, think of it as an assistive thing. Not necessarily directly replacing. Look at self-driving cars. That's a full AI implementation. Many years, hours, and dollars get put into making that work. But that's then saving you, making you more efficient. You can watch the latest episode of your TV episode now, legally, whilst driving to work. So that there's
in a self-driving car. If you're listening, you think, "Oh, well, I didn't know that." I'll get me your iPad set up on the dashboard. No, that's not what we're referring to. It's crazy, isn't it? Really?
Yeah, it is. But it's obviously, as you said, I think that's definitely the right way to look at it. It's going to make us all very efficient at what we do, and that opens up more time to do more things.
Yeah. So in rather than thinking about robots, the example I gave there, which is perhaps a bit out there, but coming after your job, yes, it is for some jobs, but in the same breath, it's opening up a whole new world, and it's creating brand new jobs, which hopefully we're seeing, is trickling right down to the education system. I know we're going to go off on all sorts of tangents in future ones, but it's just an interesting thing to think about, and for people to know that, there's no denying that in a lot of ways it is taking over the world and some jobs, but in the same breath it's creating lots of opportunities and lots of jobs, and it's just like any sort of revolution, so to speak. It just changes, and you go with the flow, and there's lots of information out there to make that transition not quite so scary for some people who don't want to get on board but know that they should be.
Yeah, I mean, you said machines are not the enemy, if that makes sense. We've used machines in industry and manufacturing for hundreds of years. Automating some of those tasks has just changed that job, the job of the person that used to operate that machine potentially, to the one that then services and maintains that machine. So it's not necessarily replacing people. I think it's best to look at it more of an assistance.
Yeah. You love that one, don't you? You've used that term a lot, assistive technology. I like it. It's just evolving with the times, isn't it? I think if we go back through any sort of industrial revolution, that's just what's happened, hasn't it? It's just been the change, you embrace it, and it's been positive for the most part, hasn't it?
Definitely.
So in terms of how we've both used AI, we had a chat earlier about how we might look at some examples, and I have to be honest and say I have actually used it this morning knowingly, because I did buy a dress for the weekend and there was some recommendations and I did buy some of them.
Okay.
I'm like every retailer's dream probably. But how have you used it in the last few days? Can you think of any examples of how perhaps you're not consciously going, I'm about to use artificial intelligence, but it's just something that you do?
Yeah. I mean, any social medias, they are big users of AI technologies, recommendation engines. I think it's baked into a lot of people. The first thing you do when you get up is check the social media of what's happening and what's going on. Looking at news, all of that then presents information in a specific way, and that's based off your habits. So, that's a lot of things that I've done sort of today. What I will do later on is potentially watch some streaming TV, some form of service, which will make a recommendation based off my habit. And I sort of try and play with the algorithms a little bit. A bit
You
sad.
tease.
I'll try and trick it because it'll think
Right.
that I want to watch a specific video, but I'll scroll past it and then click a series of other videos
Oh, you rascal.
just to trick the model. But it retrains and
Yeah.
it learns then that potentially what I was showing you isn't necessarily as relevant now. So then retrains it to start showing you a new series of videos, which is great. And again, it keeps things fresh.
Yeah. I love though that you're trying to actually check. So this new technology that we've just spent maybe 20 minutes, half an hour discussing about how it makes your life easy, you're actually actively trying to
Break it.
undo all of the algorithms, trying to get it to unlearn your habits, just to throw a spanner in the works.
Yeah, sorry.
It's good. Well, I like it. It's good. And like you say, the important part of it is it's so adaptable, it's so quick, and it learns so quickly that it unlearns and then relearns. So,
Yeah.
at some point it's going to catch you out.
Yeah, it probably will. And maybe that there is an element baked into that. If some of the recommendations are a random video that I may like. But as I say, it's down to a probability. And that's all it is. It's basic maths of probable outcome. And there's maybe a 50% probability that I will be random that day and not click on the recommended video. It may learn that. It may learn that every so often I change my viewing habits.
Yeah.
I don't know.
Right now, it's wondering who on earth you are, let's be honest. But I'm no doubt that it will actually, at some point, catch you out and you'll be like, I've used all my tricks in the book. Right, well, I think that just about brings us to the end of our first podcast. We don't want to go too into the nitty-gritty because we've got loads to talk about on future episodes. Some of the areas we just scratched the surface, didn't we?
Yeah.
How was
definitely.
it for you?
Oh, Sailor. No, it was great. Yeah, I can talk about this all day.
Excellent. Well, that's good because that's what you're doing next time. Well, we're going to take a look at, is AI after your job? So essentially, is there a robot coming for your job?
I hope not.
Oh dear, I think it started already here.
It sounded like a dialect, didn't it?
A little bit, but we got the idea. Anyway, I look forward to chatting next time about, is AI after your job? And we'll see you then. Thanks.